Welcome everyone to another episode of the All Systems Go podcast. I'm your host, Chris L. Davis. And today we get to talk about what I call the intangibles of business. Oftentimes, especially on this podcast, things get so tactical. How do I do this? And how can I automate this? And what's the result of that thing? And as much as we love automation to help people and replace people at sometimes you're always going to need people. And I've been on the record of saying I am against the term solopreneur. I don't judge you if you use it, but you are going to need help. You are going to need somebody at some point to help you along the way. So when it comes to picking that person, a lot of people don't understand how you're wired should impact who you pick because they're wired a certain way as well. So we have Eryn Morgan to help us navigate this topic conversation and shed some light. She is the CEO and founder of Ego Plus Mouse LLC, the creator of CEO Instincts, and a Kolbe certified business consultant, which is extremely important because we're going to talk about what Kolbe is. If you haven't heard of it, everyone, she helps powerful decision makers to nurture, manage, and lead people by leveraging their cognitive instincts. Okay. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast. Eryn, how are you doing?
I'm amazing, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yes. It's great to have you, of course. Give everybody a little bit of insight on exactly how you landed in this space doing what you're doing.
Sure. So I discovered Colby in late 2016. So I've known about this a long, long time, and it has become something that has just unlocked people for me in a really cool way. So I
Mm,
decided to really allow my consulting work to be based in Colby as one of my core tools. But I love helping people understand themselves and helping them understand collaborations with others. Um, and so I just decided that double down. Let's go all in with this.
and was this always a thing? Did you in your younger years did you see signs that kind of hinted or foretold that perhaps this area with helping people come together more effectively, were you like that friend that was always, hey guys, wait a minute, stop, let's come together, it doesn't have to be this difficult? What were there any signs you would say, or is this something that kind of developed over time?
Yeah, this is so funny. The place I went is I went to the one area in my life where I was not a team player, and that was in high school when you'd get put on a group project. And I don't know about you, but I always got put with people who maybe just didn't want to give quite as much effort, right? So the A wasn't just quite as important to them as it was to me. So I would end up doing all the work. And
Mm,
I think back to that and think, gosh, wouldn't it have been amazing if we had known about conation at that point and been able to form groups based on each person's instinctive strengths, the way they're going to make
yeah.
decisions and take action? Wouldn't have that been really cool? So I actually had negative experiences with team and with group, which caused me to look for a different way to interact and collaborate with people. And so Colby for me has been the link to putting together amazing teams that are cohesive and creative and just really fluid in the way they work together. But it's also great for one-on-one kind of interpersonal relationships too.
Okay. All right. So let's jump into it. You mentioned the word Kobe, and I don't want to say like an assessment junkie, but I love learning about myself
Mhm.
because what I found, Aaron, is the better I understand me and know me, the better I can be for others. And not to get too deep, Aaron, but even this has like a therapist twist to it as well, because a lot of times when you're in a relationship with people, and this doesn't even have to be your significant other, this could be your best friend, somebody that you work with. A lot of times we project and don't even realize that we're projecting either our insecurities, our traumas, or whatever the case may be onto other people. And then we're judging them at how they receive and respond to our projections. So,
Oh yeah.
without getting in the therapist chair, but let me say this: the thing that has continued to serve me well as a leader of people, not a leader in the space and anything like that, but a leader of people is the fact that I take the time and am intentional with learning about myself and how I'm wired so I can show up better for others and set the proper expectations around that. So Kolbe has been instrumental in that. And I want to give you the floor and talk about what is Kolbe, how's it spelled? So people are like, what is that? They may be searching right now. What is it and how does it differ from the other assessments in the marketplace?
Sure. Okay, so Kolbe is spelled Kolbe. And the primary index, the first one people generally take, is the Kolbe A. So the Kolbe
Mm,
A index. And what makes Kolbe different is that, first of all, it's the only assessment that measures the third part of the mind, which is the conative piece, the conation that we talked about. We used that word earlier. So we typically hear of personality assessments, and those are actually measuring a different part of our brain when they are capturing that information about us. So a personality test measures the affective piece of our mind. It's all about what we want to do. And it does evolve as we evolve. It evolves and
mm,
changes as we grow and are influenced by different people in our lives and take in new inputs. You can, and I think we would all agree, our personalities evolve as we
yeah,
age.
yeah.
The other piece of the mind is the cognitive piece. Cognitive is all about what you can do or your skills. So we think back to those quizzes we'd take in high school, like what career should I have, right? That's really going towards more of that cognitive and ability side. So that's where most people stop. They stop with cognitive and affective, and that's the end of it. But
Hmm.
conative, this third piece, is not only incredibly solid that you can count on it over time. It doesn't change, but it really measures what you will do. So if cognitive is what you can do and effective is what you want to do, conative is what you will do. And so it is a predicting, I can use it to predict a way a person's going to show up in a certain role for a team, let's say,
Hmm.
because there are certain traits that go along with being a certain profile with Kolbe. And so there are things we can count on, and that's good stuff, great, amazing strengths that people have. And when you know those strengths, then you can leverage them. And it's a great way to put a team together because it is so reliable and it is so consistent and unchanging.
Wow. Wow. Yes.
A
Okay.
lot of
So
info. I know, I just gave you a lot.
it's a lot. So let's walk through it. A lot of times when you're taking an assessment, there's like a what do you call it? Kind of like a personality profile or whatnot.
Sure.
Where Kobe was the first one where you actually gave me numbers.
Yes,
And I was like,
you
"Whoa,
did.
wait a minute! What do these numbers mean?" And and we're gonna go over the numbers in a minute. And when you know these numbers, you there are a lot of people I've witnessed after Kobe though. I didn't see it beforehand. Will have it in like their email signature, part of a conversation of somebody if they've taken the Kobe assessment. They'll tell you their number, and you'll know exactly what type of person that they are. So talk about the number
Mhm.
rubric, or I don't know what it's called. What do you call that ID or that
Yeah,
thing?
so there are modes and there are zones. And
Okay.
so there are four modes. So each person will have four numbers. The order of those numbers, when you present them to somebody else, the order of those numbers matters. And so each of those four numbers is on a sliding scale of 1 to 10. It's not one being bad, 10 being amazing. It's
Hmm.
just it's essentially a continuum that has different strengths. So if there are 4 modes and each of those modes has 3 zones, so 3 times 4 is 12. So there are 12 in when you look at a grid, you'll see each of the 4 columns divided into 3, and you're going to land somewhere between 1 and 10 in each of those 4 columns. And
Okay.
so those and when you know about Kolbe for yourself, you understand what the numbers mean for you. But until you've really dive in with a Kolbe consultant or somebody who knows it more deeply, you don't necessarily know what the numbers mean for other people unless you've had that extra level of sort of education around it. So it can be a little confusing for people at first.
Yes, and I'll say this again. I've taken many assessments, and I'm very familiar with my personality type and everything. It was spot on. For one, let me say that for one. But two is this: the level of depth in describing the zones and what the numbers meant, I felt was extremely unique because a lot of times, like I've done the disc assessment, I've done some, I think of Myers Briggs, I've done like, I've done a
Sure.
whole bunch of them. I don't even remember the name of them, but they, they do give you a nice comprehensive um, definition. But the Kobe, it was almost like, yes, that's how I am. Ooh, yes, that is what I would do. Right. Like
Mhm.
even before doing it. And then it started to show me other personality types that would work well with me and
Right.
how to work well with these other personality types. So I
Exactly.
thought the thoroughness of the delivery of results was really, I actually haven't, since I've taken the Kobe test, so I've taken assessments before it, it was unmatched. And now that I've taken the Kobe, it's still unmatched. I think I've taken a couple more after that. Is that something that you hear people say often?
All the time. And not only because of the thoroughness, but what it what it means when you understand your Colby and also then somebody else's is that you start to be able to know what are they going to do. It's so action based. It's so tangible that you can actually take the information you learn. So even when I think back to like my Myers Briggs and it's great, and what do I do with that? Right? What do we it's fantastic, and there are people who are trained in helping you do something with that, but on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't really matter, to me as much as a Kolbe assessment would in terms of action. I mean, and
Yeah.
I have so many stories, I can tell you so many stories about this, but in understanding how other people are wired. There's just nothing like that 4 number decode. Doesn't mean they're going to do it every no. It's not like it's a fortune cookie, right?
Yeah.
Or when the crystal ball, but to a certain degree, like I know what you're going to do. And I know
Mm.
how team members are going to interact with you when you are your best self and what that's going to look like. And so it is unmatched for me. It's the reason that I spent the time, energy, money, effort to actually become certified because this thing unlocks it can unlock everything. It really can.
Yeah, and I want to give my listeners, all right, everybody. I'm gonna put myself on the operating table here, and I'm gonna share my Kobe score, and then Aaron just do a quick, just an overview, nothing too deep, of
Yep.
exactly what that means. And so my score, I memorize it, is 8823.
Yep. 8823. Right. Okay. So what that tells me when I look at those numbers is the first thing is that you are a strategic planner. So
Mm,
you are somebody who is going to gather information and put it in systems and gather information and put it in systems.
mhm,
You love consistency and getting things to a place where they are steady and stable, and you are brilliant in the sort of intangible space of creating online in a virtual environment where you don't have that tactile touch and feel.
mm,
So I look at somebody like you and I think, if I partner you up with someone like me, who my default is to take action. I'm going to go out and I'm going to innovate and create.
Yep.
And you put the two of us together in a team, whew, baby, we're going to really kick some butt because you're so incredibly good at creating complex systems that solve very, very detailed problems. Such a subject matter expert. It's so fun. Does that sound about
Yes.
right?
And that was spot on. And when I read it, I was like, did she write this herself? Because we know each other. You've gone to my program and we spent some time. So let's go number by number. What
Mm-hmm.
was the first 8? Is that a zone, or what do you call that?
First 8 is fact finder. This is
Fact
all
finder.
about how you gather and share information. So the higher that number on a scale of 1 to 10, the more detailed you are in terms of research and really becoming that deep subject matter expert. So you will share step by step detailed information. I mean, you're the person in the meeting who has researched and knows all of the your stuff.
Right.
And that we can contrast with somebody who is lower in terms of the number, who is less inclined towards detail. They like summaries, brevity. Maybe they know just enough to be able to uh, stay engaged in a meeting. But they're not going to be the person you call on when you really need to go deep. And somebody like me as a 4, I sort of bridge that gap. I can do detail. We can go there,
Hmm.
or I can do that very summary kind of information. But these people, and you as a fact finder, you initiate in fact finder, you're pretty deep in terms of detail.
Okay, so that's the fact finder. That's the first 8,
That's
the
the
first
first 8.
number. Then the
Yep.
second number I had 8 in. What was that?
That is, Kolbe calls it follow through. I
Okay.
call it systems, because it's all about how you arrange data, how you create and arrange data. So,
Okay.
um, this for you as an 8, again, a very high number. You are a system builder. You like to create systems, detailed, project plans, step by step. You really go deep in this area, um, and so for you, you might be able to do the 27 step checklist, right? And you're an engineer
Hmm.
too, so that to me by training, right? I think back to that,
Yeah.
like this really matches. Where somebody like me on the lower end, I am closer to being a system breaker. So if you give me the directions, I will follow them. I'm not supposed to be good at
Mm.
building systems that are detailed and complex, but I also won't break the system. So there are people in the world who are those adapt. They like to adapt systems. They like to break systems in a good way. And so you are a builder, and I will maintain.
Mm. Beautiful. All right. So we
Yeah.
got systems was the second. Then the third
Mhm.
number was my 2. What was
Yes,
that?
that is quick start. And so quick start is really about innovation and how you take on risk and uncertainty. So as a
Mm.
2, you are all about stabilization, finding things that stay steady and stable and consistent. And so this is really something I see a lot in that strategic planner is that 882. It's I'm gonna do the research, build the system, and then I just want things to maintain that steady pace, right?
You're
Steady
speaking
pace.
my language.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know. And then you have somebody like me as an 8, right? So I'm all the way on the other end, and I'm like, "Let's go. Let's try things. Let's innovate. Let's be creative. Let's, you
Yes.
know, in how we approach." Because I mean, I've bet the rent more than once. I mean, that is just how I'm wired to be. And so we're very different in that way. And I will say this because this is a really good one to illustrate.
Hmm.
Um, the 2 and 8 were really far apart in number. And the further apart you are in number, and this goes for any column, but in our case, this one is a really good illustrator. The further you are, the more potential there is for conflict in terms of collaborative working arrangements. So
Mm.
you're going to want to steady, stable, keep the beat, and I'm going to want to go out and do new stuff. And we're going to be in that where we don't always meet eye to eye unless we know this and we work together in order to bridge that gap.
That's so good. Eryn, I want to share a story that this
Sure.
highlights. This just brought back to my memory. And this was a recent one. I won't say the name, but there was somebody who came into my, I would say my ecosystem. And I mean, I could tell immediately, just a rabbit just bouncing around, not waiting for the email that has the login to go, just where is it? Where's it? Do, 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 do. And I could feel it. I could feel the friction of me trying to slow this person down and say, hey, wait a minute, do this, then this. And they were just like, no, no, where? And before you know it, they were gone before I could even really, like capture them. But it was that dynamic of exactly what you said. You have the steady, make sure it's going, well researched, and the, hey, let's just get it done. And a lot of people don't understand that these are your customers or your type of customer. There may be a certain Kolbe score that you want to turn away with your marketing and your sales, right? And then when you start to see that behavior, what it helped me do is talk about the personality of someone without talking about the person, right? So I could say, man, that her personality is really frictional. It's just, there's just not her as a person or him as a person.
Mhm.
It's the personality. And once I know, I like to be in the driver's seat. Once I know your personality or your Kolbe score,
Mhm.
I then can cheat. I'm doing air quotes, everybody who's just
Mhm.
on audio. I can cheat the system and treat you better
Yes.
because I know. So okay, I know you're the rabbit. Let me give you a carrot. I don't have many. I only have like two or three, but let me give you this carrot, and then hopefully that will buy some grace for you to slow down just a little bit. I don't need you to slow down permanently, just a little bit to catch on with the systems and things that are in place, and then go again.
Right. It's why so often in our online kind of entrepreneurial business world, we talk about quick wins.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
there are a lot of entrepreneurs who have this initiation
mm,
style like I do.
yeah,
We're the rabbits, and you got to capture our attention and get us that quick win. And that doesn't mean that others don't appreciate a quick win,
yeah,
but people who are wired like you are understand the process of, okay, first we're going to research this, really get into understanding, and then we're going to build this out. And to you, that makes total sense. But to somebody like me, I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get to the next thing, right? So
yeah.
we're really finding that bridge between, and we'll talk more about bridge in a second. But so do you want to talk about the last number?
Yep.
Should
The
we do
last
that?
number for
Okay,
me, everyone, if you forgot, is three. So we did eight
great.
eight two. We did the first eight fact finder. The second number was systems. The third number was, what was it again?
Quick start. Yeah,
Quick
quick
start.
start.
And now we're at my last one, which is three, I believe. Eight eight
Yes,
two
and
three. Yeah.
this one is a really fun one, and I have a good story on this one. The final column is implementer, and this one deals with space and tangibles, right?
Okay.
And so when we think about implementer, you and I are both threes. So what that means is that we can visualize a solution without
Mm,
having to really touch and feel that solution. So this is
mm,
great because we're in the online world. And I mean, the internet exists, but it really doesn't, right? So this is all in our minds that we're creating these outcomes in a really a 2D environment.
yeah.
Contrast that with somebody who's a higher number. They are very tactile. They need to touch and feel it, right? And sometimes I have a coffee cup on my desk. It's the perfect example, right? Here we have one, right? If an implementer is not involved in this project and you and I are involved in making this coffee cup, you know what's going to happen? Handle's going to fall off, right? Because we're not
Mm,
the kinds of people that have that tactile touch and feel to the way that we initiate our action and the way that we interact with the world. So an implementer, they love that touch and feel, the tangible nature of things. And so one of the ways in my life that I actually saw this work, because implementers in virtual world sometimes don't get a lot of love. If you're in production of any kind, if you make stuff, you need a Highline 7, 8, 9, 10, that kind of person on your team, because that's your quality control. That's making sure things
Mm,
are well made, handcrafted, that they work the way they should when they come off that assembly line, that they're actually solid, right?
wow.
And um, one of the things that I didn't know about my husband, and once he learned his Kolbe score, it really unlocked everything for me, is he has to interact with the world when he is listening to me. Sort of, I say, like, do my download on my day. He can't just sit and listen to me. He has to do something. So what I found is that he wants to put away the dishes, or he's, tidying up the kitchen. And I thought to myself at first, why can't you just sit here and listen to me? Like, I feel like you're
Mm,
not paying attention to me. But it was actually the way he was interacting with the information he was receiving. He was putting a, like, touch and feel piece to the whole process of us having a conversation. And when I understood that about the way he likes to interact, immediately it changed the way our relationship dynamic, because he
wow.
needs to pace, he needs to interact, and I say, oh, can you imagine this thing we're going to build? And he goes out to the garage and gets, a scrap piece of wood and a hammer. And I'm going, like, can't we just imagine it? No, no, no. He has to build it, right? And so when I understood that about it, now that I have this much greater appreciation for the way he needs to interact with me in terms of our collaboration. So I don't like to leave the implementers out, because they're good people who do amazing work in the world. We just don't see them quite as much online in those higher numbers.
Yeah. I would it be fair to say, like, my brother and my father work with their hands a lot. So my brother does carpentry. My father was a lineman. He did, like the electrical power lines and all of that.
Mhm.
They have been higher on the implementer scale?
Yes, very likely. It's a good indicator when somebody works with their hands,
Hmm.
that and sometimes they couple up with other Colby strengths to create some really interesting combinations. But yeah, I typically do see that.
Got it. Got it. So everybody, you see how I'm wired, and what I did with this, Eryn, was I looked at my team, my podcast manager, my assistants, and my operations manager, and my freelancers for graphic design and things of that nature. And though they haven't taken the score, or though they don't have a score, I can always, knowing how I'm wired and, just understanding people in general, I can see how they're wired. So sometimes if I'm dealing with someone, like there's one person on my team that is probably my counterpart. I mean, I shouldn't say my counterpart, more like my twin, 8823, right? So
Mhm.
I know if you leave us to our own devices, we'll get down to the details of a thing, and it'll be a long meeting, and we'll walk away with it and not really have
Much of
many things,
an
many
action.
boxes checked, right?
Yeah.
So because they're that way, I know I need to decrease in my fact finder. I need to decrease in my fact finder, and I have to decrease in my systems so that I can be who I need to be to make sure this meeting gets done effectively. Now, if that drains you, if you're tired of that, then you may want to get somebody on your team that compliments you so you can sit back and let them do it. But I know how to communicate effectively with every single person on my team. And because of it, we operate at such a great efficiency. You know,
Yeah.
I would argue that my team gets more done collaboratively than most companies 10 times my size, or 5 times, or 3 times. And it's
I would.
because of that. The Kobe score has been an instrumental piece in that. And as we're talking about this, Eryn, I'm realizing I should officially get everybody on my team to take that score. Is that something that you see often? Do companies, businesses, enterprises, organizations reach out to you when one person has taken it and say, "Hey, I want my whole team to take this"? Is that something that happens frequently?
Yeah, it happens a lot, and it's some of the most fun work that we get to do because there are usually two scenarios where that happens. So the first scenario is, oh, this is so cool. Let's use this as enrichment. Let's use this to enhance. So things are good. How could things be better?
Yeah.
And that's where sometimes we might identify, like the way that you described that, I need to pull those numbers down in order to get everybody, that you're essentially being what I like to call a bridge. So
Mm,
you're coming to the middle of the column so that everybody ultimately can get what they need to move the ball forward, right?
yeah.
And so some people don't have the level of self-awareness that you do in this space where they go, okay, I got to turn me down a little in order to help everybody win. So in those situations, I'll have companies say, hey, I need a bridge. Can you hire that facilitator type to help bridge us and get things done? That translator role. So that's one camp, which is I love those experiences where we're making it better, we're dialing it in even more. The flip
Yeah.
side of it is stuff isn't working. Things are breaking. There are problems, communication, people are quitting, and
Yeah.
all that friction around people in business. And I get called in into those situations a lot to try to sort the problems out and figure
Mm,
out. And it's never a person who's a problem. It's always a communication gap between people that is typically the issue we find. And once we understand it, then we can start to give skills and training and opportunities for them to strengthen in that area. And sometimes there's a person missing, and sometimes the person is just not a good fit for the role. But that level of awareness helps us to sort out teams. And yes, it's what I do all day, every day.
yeah. Yeah. This has been great just revisiting all of this. And the reason why I did it is uh again, I can't tell you how many times I've been brought into a company to provide some technical strategy, some marketing strategy, and it can't be effectively executed or put into place because of people. They have somebody on the team that they don't necessarily know how to work with, and they happen to be my point that I'm instructing do this and that. So
Mhm,
I just wanted to make sure we gave the appropriate light to this subject because yes, I love technology. Yes, I love strategy and marketing and making it all come together. But at the end of the day, there's still people that you're
mhm,
going to need to be able to leverage effectively,
mhm.
starting with yourself,
Yes.
leveraging
And
yourself effectively.
And that's one of the cool things about actually having your team members take the assessment, because
Yeah.
sometimes what we see is that somebody is in a role that they, how you sometimes just sort of fall into something and you end up in a role, and more responsibility gets sort of added to your, and before you know it, you're doing a thing but you're not actually wired to do that thing. You
Yeah.
don't you are adapting to it, and you are, flexing, and you are sort of molding and shaping into the place where you need to be in order to be successful,
Yeah.
but it's not how you're naturally wired. And so
Mm,
that causes a ton of stress for the person who's having to perform that role. And then you couple up with somebody who is saying, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z, making certain assumptions about what that role would be typically, and that person isn't that. So
yeah.
that we have additional tools that we use to assess that stuff, for individuals for their position in terms of how they see their roles, but also how the leadership team sees their role. There are a lot of different tools that we can use. We don't always go that deep when it's a smaller company. That I see that a lot with bigger companies, a lot more people. But that's one of the things that I tend to. I know the telltale signs, and even I try not to guess, because people are adapt when they have to, when they're in
Yeah.
situations of stress or challenge. They'll do what they got to do, right? So
Yeah.
we always want to remember that maybe the way they're presenting isn't necessarily the way they're wired, and it's a really cool thing to be able to help someone go, oh, I'm not supposed to be in a role like this is why I'm struggling so much, And so it's a good gift to give somebody that
Yes.
$55, and you end up with an answer like this that can really change your life.
Yeah, which is a good segue. I want to give you the floor here as we come to a close. Eryn, there's a listener or two or 10 or 20 that said, I need that yesterday. I believe that is part of the solution of what the problem that has been plaguing me personally, our company, our organization. Where can somebody find out more about getting in contact with you and perhaps taking the Kolbe assessment?
Yeah, well, I have a website. It's my name, erynmorgan.com. And that's a great place to learn a little bit more about me. You can take the Kolbe with me as your guide. It's the experience you'd get on Kolbe.com, which anybody can go there just to learn a little bit more, see if it's a good fit for their company or for themselves. But working with me, I'm going to guide you and give you additional insights based on my experience. So that's where I love to start the conversation, that and my LinkedIn, which is my primary social platform where I like to spend time. And this is just like, I just am so grateful that I get a chance to talk about this, that I get to open people up to learning more. So I hope that I'll get to connect with some of your listeners, Chris, because that would be amazing.
Yes, absolutely. So all of those links, as usual, will be in the show notes. Eryn, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast and helping us. You know what you did today, Eryn? You helped us be better to ourselves first so we can be better to others forever.
Wow. It's my pleasure. My
Right?
pleasure to do it. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. And I'll see you online, Eryn.
All right, Chris. Take care.